Hello everyone. So in this class we'll try to learn about what is basal ganglia and what are its different functions. The objectives of today's class will be to understand the physiological anatomy, that is what are the different components of basal ganglia, what is corpus striatum, what are its connections, what are the functional neuronal circuits of basal ganglia, and what are the functions of basal ganglion and some of the disorders which are associated with the lesion in the basal ganglia like Parkinson's disease, chorioiditis, Huntington's chorea, Wilson's disease, and kernicterus. Basal ganglia is another accessory motor system. Okay, so where the primary cortex acts as the main motor regulating area. Uh, its function is in association with the cerebral cortex and corticospinal motor control system. Okay. So it receives important inputs from the cerebral cortex and it gives important outputs back to the cerebral cortex via thalamus. Basal ganglia is collection of mass of gray matter situated with each cerebral hemisphere. They are paired and located between thalamus and the white matter. Okay, so it is going to consist of 5 pairs of nuclei. These are called as caudate nucleus, putamen, globus pallidus, substantia nigra, and subthalamic nucleus. So globus pallidus, again it has got the internal and external, the globus pallidus interna and globus pallidus externa. Okay, so the caudate nucleus and putamen together it is called as corpus striatum, whereas putamen and globus pallidus together it is called as lenticular nucleus. Okay, so then substantia nigra it has got two parts, substantia nigra compacta and reticularis. Then we have a subthalamic nucleus. Okay, so these are the different nuclei of basal ganglia. Okay, so here you can see the globus pallidus which is underneath. So this is putamen, the caudate nucleus, thalamus, lateral geniculate body, the tail of caudate nucleus, amygdaloid nucleus, optic tract. The another picture showing the caudate nucleus, putamen, the thalamus, the tail of the caudate nucleus. Okay, so note that you cannot see the globus pallidus in this view because it is located medial to putamen. So this is the coronal section of basal ganglia. Okay, so here you can see the different nuclei of basal ganglia. Okay, so another coronal section where you are clearly seeing the caudate nucleus. Okay, so the lenticular nucleus, the total entire lenticular nucleus with globus pallidus and putamen. Okay, so here is the substantia nigra, pars compacta, and reticularis, and subthalamic nucleus. Here they are showing important uh, circuits. Okay, so which showing the caudate putamen, which is called as corpus striatum. Okay, so which is going to receive information from the cortex. So then it gives information to globus pallidus. Okay, so some pathway directly go to the thalamus and to the cortex, completing the loop. Okay, so which is called as direct pathway, and some of the information it goes to the caudate nucleus, corpus striatum initially, so then to globus pallidus externa, so then to the subthalamic nucleus, from subthalamic nucleus to the globus pallidus interna, then to the thalamus and back to the cortex, completing loop. So this is called as indirect pathway. Okay, and the function of basal ganglia depends between the balance of these direct and indirect pathway. So this is the circuit showing with the pathway with the different neurotransmitter that they secrete. Okay, so usually glutamate is excitatory and GABA is inhibitory. Okay, so the circuit shown with the blue line is excitatory and shown with the black line is inhibitory. Okay, so in indirect pathway, cortex stimulates the putamen, putamen inhibits the GPI, so GPI in turn inhibits the thalamus. Okay, so that causes inhibition of inhibition is excitation. So thalamus is stimulated with the indirect pathway. It stimulates the cortex back. So similarly, in indirect pathway, the cortex is going to stimulate the putamen. So putamen is going to inhibit the globus pallidus externa. Okay, so globus pallidus externa in turn inhibits subthalamic nucleus. So inhibition is excitation. Subthalamic nucleus gets excited. So it is going to stimulate the globus pallidus interna, which in turn inhibits the thalamus. The thalamus inhibits the cortex. Okay, so that's how the indirect pathway is negatively influences the basal ganglia. Okay, so whereas direct pathway, it has a positive effect, that is it is going to increase the muscle tone. Okay, so it is going to increase the motor activity and facilitates the motor action, whereas indirect pathway, it is inhibitory. It is going to decrease the muscle tone. It is going to inhibit the muscle activity. And we have also the substantia nigra, okay, so which has dopaminergic pathway. So it is going to produce two types of dopamine 1 and dopamine 2. So dopamine 1 is going to facilitate the action of a direct pathway, whereas dopamine 2 is inhibitory. Okay, and it is going to have a inhibitory action on the indirect pathway. Okay, so those are the important circuitry of the basal ganglia, which consist of the direct pathway. So this is the direct pathway, and this is the indirect pathway. Okay, so which is always, I mean, has a inhibitory nature. Okay, so whereas direct pathway has the excitatory nature. So ultimately, the function of the basal ganglia depends on the balance between these two circuits. Whereas indirect, it is having inhibitory effect, whereas direct, it has always facilitatory effect on the motor tone or the muscular activity. So afferent for the striatum. Okay, so it can receive afferents from corticostriate projection, which are glutaminergic, thalamostriate fibers from the centromedian nucleus, nigrostriatal fibers from the pars compacta, which are dopaminergic, raphe fibers, which are raphe in reticular formation, which are serotonergic and involved in alertness. Okay, and locus ceruleus striate fibers, which are noradrenergic, which are involved in the sleep. Okay, so these are the projection from the corpus striatum. That is, striatum, gives information to the globus pallidus, which are GABAergic inhibitory projection, and to substantia nigra, to pars reticulata, which is again GABAergic. Efferents or output from globus pallidus. Okay, so it can reach the thalamus. Okay, so through the fasciculus, thalamic fasciculus or ansa fascicularis to VA, VL, and centromedian nuclei of the thalamus. Okay, and back to the prefrontal and premotor cortex. Okay, it can lead to information to subthalamic nuclei to substantia nigra. Okay, so it also gives inputs to red nucleus rubrospinal tract pathway, so which is going to facilitate the muscle tone in the upper motor, uh, upper limb, especially in the flexor compartment. Okay, whereas it also communicates with substantia nigra with three different routes. Okay, so this is the caudate loop apart from direct and indirect pathway. Okay, so some of the fibers, they mainly get concentrated in the caudate nucleus part of the corpus striatum. These fibers go to the globus pallidus interna, the caudal part of the uh, globus pallidus, and then to the ventrolateral part of the thalamus and pars VL oralis. Okay, so then back to the supplementary motor area. and motor sensory area. Okay, so these caudate loops are important for cognitive control of motor activity, and they also help in control of the eye movements. Okay, so similarly, some of the fibers go to the substantia nigra reticulosa, the caudal part. Okay, so through the VL thalamus and pars medialis, they again come back to the supplementary motor area and motor sensory area. Okay, so these two pathways of the caudate loop, they help in the cognitive control of motor activity and eye movements. And the putamen loop, okay, so where it gets initiated from the frontal association area, reaches the putamen nucleus, globus pallidus interna, ventro-anterior part of the thalamus. Through this parvocellular pathway, it is going to again come back to the frontal association area. Similarly, some of the fibers, they go to the substantia nigra reticularis, again reaches the ventro-anterior part of the thalamus. Through the magnocellular pathway, they going to reach the frontal association area. So these are called as putamen loop, and these are important for the motor control of the body movements. Okay, so these pathway are going to the help in the movement of the body, and hence important in the maintenance of the body posture. So these are the, with this information, I mean, we can see that these are the some of the important function of the basal ganglia. So basal ganglia helps in the control of voluntary motor activity. So it is going to help in the control of reflex muscular activity. Okay, so it will help in the control of muscle tone, and it has a role in arousal mechanism. So control of voluntary activity. Okay, so mainly it is important for cognitive control of motor activity. Okay, so whenever person sees a lion, okay, so he has to run away. Okay, so that will be, so you have to decide, right? Okay, so that is called as cognitive function. Okay, and the caudate loop is responsible for these reflexes. Neural discharge in basal ganglia begins well before the movement begins. Okay, so both the cerebral cortex and the basal ganglia will help in the taking of this decision. Okay, uh, so they also help in the control of voluntary motor activity. So most of the motor action occur as a consequence of thought process in the mind, that is in the cerebral cortex. So basal ganglia is involved in planning and programming of the movements. Okay, so it is not only the primary motor cortex, even the basal ganglia is also is going to help in the planning programming. So that is the how the action should be planned, how should be it is programmed, what are the sequence of events, okay, one after another. Okay, and how it has to be executed. Okay, so that are the important functions of uh, uh, the basal ganglia. So it is also important for timing. Okay, so at what time the movement should be initiated, how much should be the scale. Okay, so what should be the intensity of the movement, whether it has to be forceful or not forceful. Okay, so how rapidly and how much large the movement should be, so it will be decided by our basal ganglia. And also it is responsible for subconscious execution of the some of the movements like swinging of the arm while walking. Okay, and the crude movements of the facial expression with emotion. Okay, so movements of the limbs while walking. Okay, movements of the hands while we are talking. Okay, uh, so so that is the importance of the basal ganglia. Once the cortex, I mean it initiates the movement, so then it is free, and the basal ganglia will take lead for the mm, further action of further action. Okay, so that is the importance of the basal ganglia. So it also helps in the control of reflex muscular activity. Okay, so basically it has the inhibitory effect on the spinal reflexes. So like cerebral cortex, the cerebellum, so and basal ganglia. I mean all these uh, three have the inhibitory effect on the spinal reflexes. Okay, so they regulate the muscle. Uh, which maintains the posture. Okay? And mainly they're also responsible for visual and labyrinthine reflexes, which are useful in the postural reflexes, which are postural reflexes. Okay. Then they also help in the control of muscle tone. The substantia nigra of the basal ganglia, I mean, it is going to control gamma motor neuron, which maintains the muscle tone. Okay, so I mean, these are the cortical inhibitory area to the striatum pallidum, substantia nigra reticular formation, and to the spinal cord. Okay, so lesion of this area, I mean, will lead to lead pipe rigidity. I mean, as it is seen in the Parkinsonism. Okay, so lead pipe rigidity means there is increased muscle tone in both flexor and extensor compartment. Okay, so that is why the muscle becomes rigid, and the type of rigidity is called as lead pipe rigidity or cogwheel type of rigidity. Its role in arousal mechanism by connections of the globus pallidus and red nucleus with reticular formation. So reticular formation is the one which is going to awaken the cerebral cortex. Okay, so failure of which the person goes into sleep. Okay, so he will be drowsy and he he's sleepy. Okay. So coming to the disorders of basal ganglia. Okay, so there are it is Parkinson's disease, chorea, or athetosis, or Huntington's disease, hemibalism, or Wilson's disease. Coming to Parkinson's disease, it is a clinical syndrome resulting from damage to the basal ganglia. It is also called as paralysis agitans, so which results from the widespread destruction of the that portion of substantia nigra, that is pars compacta, that sends dopamine secreting nerve fibers to the caudate nucleus and putamen, and is characterized by uh, rigidity, tremors, and anaxia. Okay, so this is called the triad of Parkinsonism. Okay, so what is the Parkinson's triad? It is rigidity, tremors, and akinesia. Okay, so again here, I mean, what happens in the Parkinsonism is, okay, so there will be dopamine deficiencies, particularly D2 deficiency, so which is inhibitory, but it is going to so excite the indirect pathway. Okay, so where normally it is inhibitory, by exciting the indirect pathway, so it is going to facilitate uh, the movements. Okay, so it is going to increase the muscle tone. Okay, and that is the pathophysiology in dopamine, I mean Parkinsonism, where there is there will be degeneration of uh, nigrostriatal pathway. So nigrostriatal pathway. Okay, so where there will be deficiency of D2, so normally which is inhibitory. Okay, now it is going to excite the indirect pathway, and it is going to increase the muscle tone, rigidity, and thus because of this the clinical uh, on this based upon this the clinical symptoms of Parkinsonism develops, that is rigidity uh, and hypokinesia and all. What is the cause for Parkinson's disease? Primarily, it is idiopathic. The cause is not known. In elderly, there will be degeneration of the nigrostriatal pathway, which are dopaminergic. Okay, so as I told, okay, so there are various secondary causes for this Parkinsonism. It can be secondary to viral encephalitis, cerebral arteriosclerosis, drugs like phenothiazines, or experimentally it can be induced by injecting MPTP, so methyl phenyl tetrahydropyridine. Clinical features of uh, Parkinsonism, they are mainly akinesia. I mean, that is because of the increased muscle tone, both increase in the muscle tone in the flexor and in the extensor, which is going to lead to uh, the cogwheel type of rigidity or the lead pipe type of rigidity. Okay, so they are unable to initiate the voluntary movements or decreased movements. Okay, and the akinesia and hypokinesia is mainly because due to hypertonicity of the muscles. Okay, so and the flex, especially in the upper limb, the flexors are more involved than the extensors, so that is why they will have a bent uh, position. Okay, and when they try to walk, okay, so they will have a small steps because of the rigidity of the lower limb muscles. Okay, so which is called as a shuffling type of gait. Okay, in the meantime, so they walk as if they are falling down and trying to catch hold of the center of gravity. Okay, so that type of shuffling gait is called as also fascinating gait. Okay, so there will be reduced arm swinging in them. Okay, so there will be forward tilt of the posture. Okay, so there will be blank facial expression because of the increased muscle tone of the fascia. Okay, so there is a slow monotonous and slurred speech. Okay, so and there can be tremors also. Okay, so clinical features of Parkinsonism are mainly bradykinesia, that is reduced the movement, mask-like face, prolonged reaction time, that is because of the involvement of the cognition, absent associated movements. Okay, so which is for which the basal ganglia is very important. There will be shuffling or a fascinating type of gait. Okay, and retropulsion. Okay, so another important symptom is rigidity. So there is an increased tone in the muscles. Okay, and the cause for that is increased discharge from gamma afferents to the muscle spindle. Okay, so striatum under the influence of both acetylcholine and dopa. Okay, uh, so it is not only the deficiency of dopa. Okay, so usually in corpus striatum, both the neurotransmitters are there, acetylcholine and dopamine. Okay, so when dopamine deficiency is there, okay, so it is going to increase relatively the actions of acetylcholine, which is excitatory. Okay, so that is why there will be more excitation of the pathways. Okay, so even that is going to lead to some of the hyperkinetic symptoms of the Parkinsonism. Okay, so it is not only the deficiency of dopamine. Okay, so it is also because of the relative increase in the acetylcholine will also lead to the hyperkinetic symptoms of Parkinsonism. Okay, and also degeneration of the neurons of substantia nigra. Okay, so less dopa and more acetylcholine activity will lead to hyperkinetic features. Okay, so clinical features of rigidity are lead pipe rigidity and cog wheel type of rigidity. So hypertone in protagonist and antagonist muscles. Okay, so they will have a statue like appearance because of the rigid limbs. Okay, and the posture is always a flexion attitude because of more flexion muscles are involved rather than the extensors. They also tremors. They are involuntary rhythmic oscillatory type of distal parts of the limb and the head. Okay, so unlike in cerebellar tremors, they are resting tremors. In cerebellar disorder, they are intentional tremors. The tremors are absent in sleep and increase by stress or excitement. Okay, so they are slow type of tremors and also called as frill rolling movements. So how do you treat Parkinsonism? Usually they will be treated with dopamine. Okay, so dopamine will not cross the blood-brain barrier, so that is why uh, the L-dopa is administered, which can cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay, and also it is all added with the carbidopa. Okay, so which is going to reduce the peripheral decarboxylation of L-dopa. Okay, so it is going to prevent the conversion of uh, dopamine in the liver. Okay, so that is why so carbidopa is also used. Okay, in low doses it reduces the rigidity, and in high doses it is going to reduce the tremors. Other modality of treatment of Parkinsonism is surgical destruction. Okay, so usually the pallidotomy is done, the removal of the globus pallidus, or the ventrolateral nucleus of the thalamus. Chorea is rapid, jerky, involuntary movements, dancing type of movements, so which are seen mainly because of the damage to the caudate nucleus. Okay, so they are seen in the children as a complication of the rheumatic fever. Okay, so rheumatic fever is a streptococcal infection. So these uh, bacteria, they are going to affect the caudate nucleus and will lead to choreiform movements. Athetosis, they are slow, rhythmic, twisting, worm like, confluent writhing movements of the extremities. Okay, so there can be the movements of the body as well as the extremity, which are slow, rhythmic, and twisting type and worm like movements, as we can see here. Okay, so they're going to affect the mainly the fingers and wrist. Okay, so in athetosis occurs because of the damage to the putamen. Okay, so there, I mean, it is seen in children after the birth injuries. Huntington's disease. Okay, so it is a genetic disease, autosomal dominant disorder. Okay, so affects mainly the age group of 30 to 50 years. Okay, so this abnormal gene production occurs or mutation occurs at the chromosome 4. Okay, and the lesion here will be, there will be damage to the GABAergic and cholinergic neurons of striatum to the pallidum. Okay, so this lesion leads to the hyperkinetic features. Okay, so there will be hyperkinetic choreiform movements. Okay, so these are called as Huntington's chorea. That is why disease is called as Huntington's chorea. Okay, so it is also associated with slurred speech, dementia, jerky trajectory of hand. Hemibalism hemibalism So here causes damage to the subthalamic nucleus, commonly because of the hemorrhage. Okay, so reduce output from the GPI, substantia nigra, uh, pass compactor to thalamus. Okay, so this leads to disinhibition of the thalamic output. So there will be hyperkinesia. So clinical features will be spontaneous attacks of flail-like intense violent movements of the whole body. Okay, so whole body or the limbs. Okay, so sudden flail movements of uh, the arms or the legs can occur in hemibalism. So Wilson's disease. So here hepatolenticular degeneration occurs because of the copper toxicity due to the impaired biliary excretion of the copper. Okay, so it, it is it is because of uh, the cop the defective copper metabolism, where the ceruloplasmin is reduced because of the liver disease. Okay, so that causes increased free levels of copper. Okay, so that is going to, you know, gets deposited in the basal ganglia, especially in the lenticular nucleus. Okay, and mainly in the putamen. Okay, so these are going to cause a Parkinsonism like disease, akinesia, muscle rigidity, and tremors. Kernicterus is a hemolytic disease of the newborn due to Rh antibodies. Okay, so here because of the hemolysis, there will be raised indirect bilirubin. Okay, so because in children the blood-brain barrier is not properly developed, it crosses the blood-brain barrier and gets deposited in the globus pallidus. Okay, so again, clinical features here are like rigidity, chorea, athetosis, and mental deficiency. So this is all about the basal ganglia, different nuclei of the basal ganglia, different function, and some of the applied aspects related to basal ganglia. Thank you.